tonight's presentation. I thank Jason and the SFAA Club. The presentation is entitled Stars Up, Down, and All Around, Connecting with Cosmic Community from Aden to Coonabarabra. So the topic tonight combines two of my favorite activities, which is astronomy and travel. When I can combine them for astronomical travel, it's a lot of fun for me, but I do want to stress the theme of the connecting and with the community that we all are here. We have a community within our club. This evening we're connecting with each other. You know, years ago when I was younger, I used to pack my C8 telescope in the back of my car, used to head up into the mountains, wherever in California, and would just camp out, you know, on Forest Service land or whatever by myself. I'd find dark skies, and you know, I loved doing that. It was fun, but it was kind of a solo adventure. As the years have gone on, I find that I prize more and more the experience of connecting with others, of sharing experiences together, of learning from other people, which has been a fantastic experience for me, and sharing whatever knowledge I may have with others. So for me,
the feedback is worse now.
Oh, did I fix it?
maybe I don't need this, do I? It's better without.
But we're close. You're fine for us.
You can hear me in the back, right?
What?
Let's forget this.
Okay, I turned the volume down. Just give it a one more hi, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you doing?
Is that better? Or is that...
Shall we go with this?
Fine.
Okay, we'll go with this. I'll try not to speak too loudly, perhaps, too. But then anyway, the experience of spending time under the stars with other people, for me, takes things to a different celestial spheres, so to speak. And tonight I'm going to talk about some places that I've been and that you can go to or may be interested to learn about. I know that many of the people here have been to the locations I'm going to be talking about. As Jason mentions, there's going to be opportunity for questions and for time after the presentation for those of you who may want to avail yourself of the expertise that's in this room tonight. So whether you are in California planting the flag of the club at the Golden State Star Party, or traveling halfway around the world to another continent to meet new friends under pristine dark skies, traveling up, down, and around, following the stars, is something that I can recommend. And we're going to start off by going up to Northern California, to the Golden State Star Party. And I'm just curious, how many people here have already been to GSSP before? Okay, so we have quite a number, and quite a number who have not. So if you have ever wanted to be in a community of like souls, people who love astronomy, under a dark sky, I can highly recommend the Golden State Star Party. It is located near the small town of Aden, California. It's held every summer, usually in July around the new moon. The dates of this year, as you can see, are from the 11th to the 15th, arriving the 11th, departing the 15th. It's a 4-night event. You can find a lot more information, pretty much everything you want to know, at their website, goldenstatestarparty.org. And what it is a 4-day event held on a cattle ranch, Frosty Acres Farm, near the border of Modoc and Lassen counties. If you're not familiar with the area, it is on the Modoc Plateau. It's about, 4,500 feet elevation, I believe. It's high desert. It's ranch country. And here's an overview, literally, of the Star Party. I think this was taken by Joan in 2018. This shows roughly half of the site, looking, I think it's north. As you can see, people are arranged in rows as a hospitality tent. Really, I think of it sort of as the Woodstock of astronomy, and when you're on the ground, you'll find lots of telescopes. You'll find people just wandering around talking astronomy, living and breathing astronomy for 4 days. It's just, you know, a place to, frankly, you know, geek out and nerd out under a dark sky with fellow astronomers. So this, to me, is really the height of the cosmic community and the spirit that's involved. You will find SFAA members there, and increasingly in the past several years, we've had a growing colony of SFAA members, although we've had members going back many years. This event I believe it's been going at this particular site. I read it since 2007 or so, so I believe we're coming up close to 20 years. The GSSP Star Party has its roots in events going much further back than that, events happening in Shingletown and in Mount Lassen area. Here's Robert Thompson, set up for a night of imaging, Mazen Ataya, and it's a place where people can come from all over the West, all over the country even, and gather, maybe see old friends that they haven't seen since the previous year. Hi, welcome, come on in. We're having a talk about astronomy. I hope that's what you're here for. Okay, good. There's also some cookies. And it attracts, well, some of the top visual observers in the country. When you walk around the field, you'll come across a lot of telescopes, a lot of large telescopes. It's fun just to go around and kind of gawk at what you can see there. Some beautiful telescopes and very knowledgeable astronomers that are here. Here's the location in the northeast corner of California. It's about roughly a 5-hour drive from the Bay Area, so it's a good long drive, but certainly doable in a day. It's pretty much some of the darkest skies and the least light pollution you can find in that amount of driving. And it does take a little bit of preparation if you haven't been before, which I'll get into in a little bit. Well, what's it like? Here's Mazen arriving at the gate. You may see Mount Shasta in the distance. It's a beautiful sight. There's a little check-in tent where you can pick up your t-shirt if you ordered one, some meal tickets, and a program for the week. You can plant your flag, or you can search out for the club flag and set up your telescope. Here's Jim Webster setting up his telescope with Cheryl. That's you, I think, James. And once you're done, you're ready to go. You can sit back, kick back, and sort of commune with some friends and enjoy that community. Now, a word you'll notice, the tent here, and that is a very important consideration if you've never been up there. This is high desert. It is the summer. You need to have sun protection when you're up there. Most of the people will camp out on site, on the field. Some people have trailers. It's important to have some kind of protection for your tent. And of course, hats and sunscreen are a must as well. It commonly, in my experience, which is not that great, I think I've been 5 or 6 times, gets in the 80s or 90s in the daytime, but there have been a couple of times where it's gotten quite a bit hotter than that, 100 degrees or above. That does get uncomfortable, so you do need to plan for that. There's a central hospitality tent where people can gather just to meet and greet, or there are meals served there. It's a 4-night event, as I mentioned, and 2 of the nights there are meals served. Those are optional, but you can buy meal tickets. And that's a convenient way to be able to eat and enjoy the community on site. Now, I'd like to point out this gentleman on the left in the hat. That's Aaron Albaugh. He is the owner of Frosty Acres Farms, through whose generosity we astronomers are able to participate in this wonderful event. He has hosted us now, as I mentioned, I think for about 19 years. And in terms of connecting with community, in a sense, I also enjoy and consider it a connection with different cultures, in a sense. So this is still California, but this is rural California. This is farmland, it's ranch land, it's agricultural. You know, people have a different way of life here. It's not something that I at least experience on a daily basis in the Bay Area. They certainly work hard. They're very friendly people in my experience. They may have different outlooks and points of views than many of us do here, but all I can say is I really enjoy the experience of being in a different place. And from what I have gleaned from talking with Aaron is that the people in the community enjoy it as well. You know, they have this influx of, at first, you know, these strange people that are interested in looking up at the sky with these large telescopes. You know, what's going on here? But over time, the event, as I understand it, has been well supported in the town. So one of the nights the meals are presented by Frosty Acres Ranch. Aaron here is serving hamburgers made from beef raised on his farm. It's actually very good. There's also veggie burgers if you're not interested in that. There's various side dishes. The other evening is hosted by Aiden General Supply. That's the sort of general supply outfit in town, which I believe is owned by a couple who are members of the GSSP board, and they're astronomers themselves. So quite a connection with the little town. After dinner, there are lectures and presentations here. Steve Gottlieb, who's attending tonight, gave a presentation last year. I think it was on, well, I think we're looking at a Palomar globular here. He had some challenge objects. Steve and the other presenters are always giving very interesting talks, often centered around observing. And the majestic presence of Mount Shasta is always with us, a beautiful sight as we wait for it to get dark. And when it gets dark, what do we have? We have a beautiful starry sky, free of almost all light pollution here. The Milky Way, when it comes out, is brilliant on a clear, transparent night. If you've never experienced that, you really need to do that at some point in your life. It's really an awe-inspiring sight. It's something that we, in my opinion, is something that we need, that sense of wonder, that sense of awe. And I will tell you that having done this, being into astronomy for many years, most of my life, and being around other astronomers who have done this for decades and decades, I don't think that sense of wonder ever goes away. If anything, it sharpens to some degree. We may get more knowledgeable, but I think there's always that sense of discovery and that sense of awe. The Milky Way in Cygnus here overhead can be especially crisp and detailed on a good night. In terms of how dark, some people ask, well, how dark is it really? If you're familiar with sky quality meters and the concept of magnitudes per square arcsecond, that may mean nothing to you. But there's devices that measure these things. I commonly get in the range of 21.7 to 8 or so. What does that mean? It means it's a very dark sky. It means that you're going to see more than you can ever see around here. Some people talk Bortle levels. Some people I've heard describe this as a Bortle 1, which is the best. I tend to be a little bit more conservative. You can see there's a little bit of a glow down there. I think that might be Susanville, which is about 50 or 60 miles away. I've never actually noticed that visually. It tends to be exaggerated a bit on an image. Having said that, it's an excellent dark sky sight. There's no question about that on a good night. And you can sit back, commune with the stars, and with your fellow astronomers. I think Ike is coming later today. We're expecting Ike
believe
here?
so.
Yeah, maybe he's coming a little later, but
Yeah.
I wanted to thank him and the other SFA members who gave me permission to use their images. This is one of Ike's images. And take a look just at a minute at the contours of the Milky Way here. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later in the presentation, but of course we have the center of the galaxy in Sagittarius, roughly around here. Scorpius is down here. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. Well, after a night of observing, what do? You can hang out with Bob Douglas, who's here, and Fran, his wife, their friend David. You may want to just sleep in all day, or you may want to visit the town of Aden, where you can find an iconic milkshake. It's a nice way to cool off. You may find yourself at an impromptu root beer float party as well. There are some other attractions in the area if you'd like to explore. Bernie Falls State Park, if you've never been, I highly recommend it. It's a gorgeous area. It's about an hour or so drive, but well worth it if you've never been. I understand that they recently have redone some of the visitor experience. They've recontoured the trails. However, I also recently read that because of its popularity, it's now on a reservation system. So if you are planning to go, you will need to check that out. Make sure you're not disappointed. Tim Winkler, I don't think he's here, but he's very much into birding, and there's another area. Here's Ike coming now.
Oh, good.
There's a spot about a 45-minute drive in the other direction, the Modoc Wildlife Refuge, and he took these wonderful pictures of various birds there. And you might find this fellow closer to home. He lives not far outside of Aden, and standing watch by day, waiting for his time at night. And if you didn't get enough of astronomy during the night, well, there's always solar viewing. And I think Dan Durkin and some other people have set up solar scopes for observation there. So to sum up, I'm going to move on to some of the other places around the world that I'd like to discuss. But I can highly recommend the Golden State Star Party. It's coming up now in, I guess, less than a couple of months. You can go online if you're interested. You don't have to have a telescope to go. You can just go kind of lie back and enjoy the sky, bring your binoculars perhaps. It's a wonderful place to commune and connect with the cosmic community. So as we say goodbye to GSSP and put Mount Shasta in our rear view mirror, we are going to go up, down, and this time down, down, down to follow stars down below. And by the way, of course, these are star trails around a celestial pole. Can anyone tell which celestial pole this is? Do you know?
It's the south celestial.
Well, it is.
No pole star.
No pole star, very good, yeah. There's no pole star or no bright star really right near the center. And if you're really clever, you could probably figure out by the constellation. Yes, so this is the south celestial pole. As we head down south, and as we do that, well, it's a long way to get there, isn't it? And just getting to Australia is itself sort of an exercise in planetary science. Yes, we do live on a planet mostly covered by water, and to get from San Francisco, roughly latitude 38 degrees north, down to Sydney, which is around 31 or 32 degrees latitude south, it takes about 15-hour flight nonstop. You cover a lot of Earth or a lot of ocean in that time. But your reward is one of the fantastic events that's available to amateur astronomers in the world. That's the Oz Sky Star Safari. So the Oz Sky Star Safari is an event that's held every year near the small town of Coonabarabran in New South Wales, Australia. The next event will be next year in April, from April 3rd to the 10th. That's in 2027. You can find out, again, a lot more information on their website, ozsky.org. There's a ton of information, pretty much everything you'd like to know. But I know there's a half a dozen of us or so who have already been there. Steve and Bob Douglas, myself, and Jim Webster. I may be missing somebody. You're welcome to talk to us to get more information. I'm going to talk about this event a little bit more. I should say at the outset that there actually is a second event that's held now every year. That is held in usually around October or November. It's a smaller event in a different location. It's also a wonderful event, but in my opinion, for a first-time visitor, I would probably recommend the one that's held in March or April every year for a variety of reasons. It's more full-featured. There are more people that come. There are more lectures. I find that there's a little bit more to do in the area, and I'll explain what the experience is like. You can see what I'm talking about later. Well, here is the OSCI group just 2 months ago. I attended in March. As you can see, there are about 30 plus people who come. And it's an all-volunteer event. So the event is run by Australian volunteers who do this as a labor of love. They do it to share the wonderful treasures of the southern sky. So nobody is paid for this, but their knowledge, their enthusiasm, their helpfulness really is extraordinary, and it's something that I've enjoyed over and over again. So I've been 5 times now, and I'm planning to go next April. And I know that we're possibly having a little expedition going. I believe 5 or 6 SFAA members are already signed up. You can talk to Steve again. I believe he signed up for the one in October this year. Okay, why would you want to go all the way to Australia? Well, here's one reason: the beautiful southern Milky Way. Now, you remember at GSSP we could see the Milky Way in Sagittarius Scorpius. Which is located here, but in the southern skies you can continue that, the Milky Way, looking at our galaxy up to the other constellations that are invisible from our latitude. That includes Norma and Centaurus, Crux, Carina, Vela, and so forth. It's an absolutely spectacular sight. And you will see objects that you simply cannot see from our latitude, including what is probably, at least in my opinion, the most beautiful globular cluster, NGC 104, or also known as 47 Canis. Omega Centauri, you may have seen scraping the horizon up here, perhaps, you know, a big blob that just barely clears, but in a big telescope overhead in the southern hemisphere, this object it's simply jaw-dropping. It has to be seen to believe. Galaxies like the barred spiral, NGC 1365. I know Bob calls this the mark of Zorro. It's the finest barred spiral in the sky, I would say. And the bar, the central bar, and the spiral arms are clearly visible in the scopes that they provide for you. And you see 1566, a beautiful face-on spiral, sometimes called the Spanish dancer. The Eta Carina Nebula is the largest and brightest emission nebula in our galaxy, much bigger and brighter than the Orion Nebula. Not to throw shade at the Orion Nebula, which also looks great down there, but this is a spectacular object. At the heart of this nebula, and the star Eta Carina has an incredible activity going on, the Homunculus Nebula, which you can also see. And then, of course, the Milky Way, the center of our galaxy, appears overhead at the zenith here. So, whereas at GSSP from our latitude, the center of the galaxy in Sagittarius, it's maybe 20, 25 degrees above the horizon. Here, it goes straight overhead, and it's simply an awe-inspiring experience. Cannot recommend it enough. From that perspective, the Milky Way really looks like an edge-on galaxy, doesn't it? And that's how we see it. The jewel box cluster, open clusters, that's in Crux. And of course, the Magellanic Clouds. So there's really nothing like that here. These are dwarf satellite galaxies. The large cloud is about 160,000 light years away from us. The small, about 200,000. These are easily clear, distinct, large objects visible to the naked eye in the southern hemisphere. They were formerly known as the nubecula, or clouds, the nubecula major and minor. And John Herschel, who is the son of William Herschel, went to the southern hemisphere. He went to Cape Town, I think it was 1834, to research objects and observe things that he couldn't see from latitudes in England. And he had this to say: the nubeculae are to be regarded as systems sui generis, which have no analogs in our hemisphere. Or another way to put that might be, come on down, there ain't nothing like what we got up there. And that's pretty much true. They are one-of-a-kind objects. There's nothing like it here. The Andromeda Galaxy really cannot hold a candle. They're like large, bright, detached pieces of the Milky Way that are floating around. And there's kind of a never-ending, endless supply of amazing targets, and perhaps the most famous and amazing one might be the Tarantula Nebula, an emission nebula, which is naked eye. It's a naked eye emission nebula in another galaxy, just so consider that. You can see this. It doesn't look like this with the naked eye, but it is detectable in a large telescope. It's an amazing sight. And here we are, the photo I took using one of the telescopes that I used. It's a beautiful experience to be under another hemisphere of skies. And here's the telescopes that they provide. So the beauty of this event is that you can travel and you don't have to bring your own telescopes. These are some of the telescopes, large, mainly obsession Dobsonians that are provided, most of them in the 18 to 25-inch range. And they are set up on the observing field, which is right next to the motel, which you can stay at. It's pretty much astronomy heaven if you're into that kind of thing. It's a long way to get there, but once you're there, it's a turnkey operation. They give you a bed, they give you meals, and they give you these big scopes in a dark sky. I mean, really, what more can you ask for? There are other equipment that's available, including this very cool motorized large binocular chair. Yes, you can drive this with a joystick. And the vibe and the feel, the spirit of the cosmic community there is very strong. As I mentioned, this is an all-volunteer effort. That's Lachlan McDonald on the left. He's the registrar, or essentially the organizer, the director of this event. It's been going on now for, I think, about 33 years, so they have a lot of experience doing this. Again, it's for the love of astronomy. Here are some of the volunteers that he's presenting. During the day, when you're not observing, there are various lectures given. Some of the topics might include, well, I've got it right here. They're presented by various, some of the volunteers as well as some of the attendees. You might attend a lecture during the day. There could be an introduction to the southern skies, or maybe some challenge objects. There are imaging lectures and plate solving, meteor impact craters in Australia, venomous snakes of Australia, aboriginal astronomy, and so forth. So, as I mentioned, this is kind of a full-featured event. You go, you observe, and if you want, you can attend lectures and other events. Here are the volunteers. It's a 7-day event. This is a week-long event, the All Sky Star Safari, the classic so-called. 2 nights out of the 7, there's the volunteers prepare dinner, a barbecue, a welcome dinner, and a farewell dinner. There's a dining space in the motel you stay at, and on the nights that the volunteers are not preparing meals, the ownership recently changed. There are Indian owners there, and they prepare some really quite tasty Indian food, I find. And they're also sensitive to people that might have dietary restrictions. And then after dinner, it's time to go to the scopes and enjoy the wonderful skies. Other events you can do, the Oscar Star Safari is very near Siding Spring Observatory, which is the premier optical observatory in Australia. And it's set in the Warrumbungles National Park. There's some beautiful hiking and sightseeing you can do here. There are other attractions. There's an interesting pottery studio you can attend. Or you might just go into town and have a little snack, or maybe a coffee, a flat white. Or then again, you might just follow this person's philosophy, which I think kind of sums up what the experience is like.
Can you visit the
Yes, you can. I'll get to that in a minute. There are tours. There's wildlife. This is a rural setting, so we do see wildlife. Kangaroos make regular appearances, especially at dusk and dawn. Birds, including the kookaburra. I think that's an eastern rosella, if I'm not mistaken. Cockatoos. Now here's a bird, the emu, a large flightless bird, one of the symbols of Australia. Now I've never seen a wild emu on the grounds of Kuna, personally. I think I saw one on a farm down the road. But there's a place you can see the emu at Coonabarra, and that is at night, on a clear night. You see the emu here? So the emu is a structure in the sky that the Aborigines talk about. It's in part of their culture. And you can see the head here. This is actually consists, I believe, of the Coalsack Nebula in Crux. You can see the beak here. And the body extends down here through the Dark Nebula. I find this so fascinating. You know, I'm very used to seeing patterns of bright objects, stars, or clouds, or whatever. And we talk about those features in the sky. But the Aborigines saw these dark area, the Dark Nebula, as an object to be recognized. My understanding is that although there are many tribes of different Aborigines throughout Australia, that they all recognize the emu. They use its appearance and timing to help regulate their own food gathering. So this is the emu that you can see. Here's the picture I showed earlier. Can you see it here? Here's the head, the little beak here, and the body that comes down here. It's enormous. It's over 60 degrees, I think. It's almost a third of the sky. That's a pretty cool thing to see. This is just an overview of what you might see once it gets dark in April. Looking to the west, you will see Orion. It may look similar at first, but then you'll notice it's actually upside down in our experience. Sirius, way up high, doesn't really twinkle. It's getting close to the zenith here. And you may have observed objects here in Monoceros or Canis Major or Puppets or whatever. But it's a different experience to see them so high in the sky. You know, objects like M46, for example, which I've observed many times here, they really just pop in a whole different way. The planetary nebula, in that when you can see it at such high elevation or altitude in a large telescope, it gives it a different experience. And then, of course, you get into the areas that you can't see at all. As I mentioned before, into Vela, Carina, this area is basically just insane. The area around the Eta Carina Nebula, it's just jam-packed. There's too many objects in there, but they're all really worth exploring and exquisite. And this is an example which you see if you did pull on all-nighter or got up very early next April, you would see the Sagittarius center of the Milky Way directly overhead at the zenith. Well, Australia's a large country. I just wanted to make sure you all realize that. It's about the size of the continental United States, but with a population of only about 28 million people. So that's less than 10% of the population of the US, and that's reflected in this light pollution map. So you can see Most people live along the coast. We've got Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne here. You don't have to go very far until you hit real dark skies. And that is the case here with Coonabarabran and the Oscar Star Safari here in Sydney. And you get into quite dark skies. I would say the skies are probably similar, perhaps, to GSSP, or maybe a little bit darker in my mind. It certainly is a dark sky sign. This shows a satellite view of Sydney and where the event is held. It's about 200 or so miles, about a 6-hour drive or so. There's various ways to get up there. Most people coming from the US will either fly into Sydney or transit at some point. And I would highly recommend spending, if you can possibly spare it, at least a day or two in Sydney. 5 minutes? Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to rush through this here. Sydney is a wonderful city, and we had a little expedition last year of about 4 of us. Mazen, Tiffany Wexler, Jean Lavin here, and myself went down to Sydney. It's a wonderful place to explore. We caught a show at the Opera House. There's an optional meet and greet event in Sydney. You can meet some of the volunteers as well as some of your fellow attendees. You can take a plane to the town of Dubbo and then rent a car. It's about a 2-hour drive. You can also drive the whole way. You can also take a train and drive. But however you get there, you will arrive at Coonabarabran, the astronomy capital of Australia. Here is our group last year. I think the 4 of us in the front row down there. And we did visit the Anglo-Australian telescope at Sighting Spring. You can take tours there. We did that last year. It's a 3.9 meter equatorial mount telescope. Very interesting and worthwhile tour. At the end, they let you go on the catwalk. There's a magnificent view, or there would be, if it weren't cloudy. So we had unfortunate weather last year. We have to be honest and truthful about these things. My understanding is we had basically the worst weather in the 30-plus year history of AusSky. As it turned out, I think there was one night at the very end where there were a few hours where it did clear up, but my group made an executive decision after, I think we spent 2 or 3 nights there. It looked like it might be clear in Sydney, and was there any way to rescue the situation? It was clear, and we found a spot about an hour south of Sydney, not a dark sky spot. This actually exaggerates it, but we managed to get some observing done with binoculars so that we could see, hear, correct some of the features. I'm going to skip ahead up here, but what I am going to say is, in the theme of cosmic community, Mazen and I made connection with fellow astronomers in Adelaide. That's in South Australia, about a 2-hour flight from Sydney, because the weather looked better there. We were desperate, and we managed to make connection with Andrew and Rosemary here of the Astronomy Society of South Australia. This is part of the sort of really the kindness and enthusiasm I found among many Australians. We exchanged tokens of peace and friendship, and they drove us out to their club observatory, which is really quite impressive. They loaned Mazen a telescope, and on that last night we had a few clouds come in, but basically we had a very good experience. Mazen got to see some of the eye candy in the southern sky. I'm happy to report that this year we had very clear skies and good experience. The weather gods can be fickle, as we all know. No one can control the weather, but I still am intending to go back next year to enjoy this wonderful event. All right, up, down, and all around. I'm going to wrap this up pretty quickly. There's one story we haven't talked about too much. It goes up and down every day, and we can travel around the world to see for a very special event. And that, of course, is a total solar eclipse. I'm just curious, how many people here have seen a total solar eclipse? Okay, most of you, that's wonderful. If you have never seen one, I highly am begging you that sometime in your life, please make plans to see one. And this is my family. You do create community when you go to these events. The next one is happening this August 12th. And I know a few of us are going, Ernest and Kathleen, I think, and as well as Jason. The path goes over Greenland, Iceland, and makes landfall again in Spain. I'm going to be in Zaragoza. I think Ernest and Kathleen may be there as well, northeast Spain. This eclipse will be very short, less than 2 minutes, I think, and also quite low. Nevertheless, since I've become a dedicated eclipse chaser, I am going to make plans to see this. The big one, though, is next year, August 2nd, 2027. This is going to be the longest duration eclipse for the next, I don't know, 70 or 80 years, something like this. And as you can see, the path goes over the very south part of Spain, Gibraltar, northern Africa, southern Mediterranean, into Egypt. I considered going to Egypt. The eclipse totality is going to go right over the Temple of Luxor. How amazing would that be? But this is going to be August, too, in Egypt. And I had my doubts, so instead, what I am planning to do is go on a cruise for the first time in my life. And I know several of us, actually in the club, are going on a cruise that will be somewhere in the southern Mediterranean to see the event. And then finally, the year after. So if you want to see an eclipse, it's not too late to make plans for next year. Or you could consider 2028. Here we are in Australia again. And you can see that the eclipse, which I think gets to a maximum of 4 to 5 minutes, goes right through Australia, including the city of Sydney. You could sit right outside of the Opera House. If it's clear, you'll get a wonderful view. And I'll mention that the Sky Star Safari is having a special event. They don't usually do events in July, that is winter, but they will have a 4-day event. I haven't myself decided exactly where I'm going, but I am considering that. So, well, to sum up, when we sit under the stars or wherever we go in the world and we connect with the cosmos, I hope that you will also connect with the community that you find there, the culture and companions that you do. I know for myself, I find that it enriches the experience in a way that really, it makes it quite celestial, as a matter of fact. And I hope that you will experience that in your travels and in your experience with astronomy. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your listening and sharing your experience with me.
Okay. As I mentioned, we'll have questions at the end. Did you, Akia, did you have anything you were going to share tonight? Or no?
Yeah, I can share, yeah.
I mean, were you prepared? I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I know we had slacked about it.
I don't have slides, but I can definitely share my experience.
If you want to take a few minutes, I would love to. It sounds like unique experience, so.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. I think Dan covered most of the objects that we saw and the splendor of the southern sky, but I had the opportunity to go to Chile and Bolivia specifically to observe the southern hemisphere for the first time. It was actually my first time outside of my home country in US. So it's my first international trip as well, and I decided that it would be an astronomy related trip. I went to Chile. There's a town called San Pedro de Atacama in the Atacama Desert. And they have a nice facility run by one French person. The name of the facility is Space Orbs. So, and it's affordable. I think it's the lodge. You stay at the lodge, just like Dan said. In Australian festival, the lodge and the telescopes are right next to each other. The same facility there. We have a lodge, and it's a little bit away. It's 4.5 miles, 7 kilometers away from the town of San Pedro de Atacama. But Chile itself is that part of Chile is very, very remote, anyways. And I had the opportunity to rent a 19.6-inch diameter telescope. It's the first time I actually had an experience with such a huge telescope operating it all by myself. The person who is taking care of who made the entire facility is very responsive. He was very understanding. Okay, your first time handling it, so he was there to instruct me on how to exactly use whatever there. And he conducts tours himself as well. So if let's say if you have your family members also, if they want to have a proper beginner tour as well, they have beginner tours as well. So my sister was there, she took the beginner tour, and they are also very beautiful, very, very detailed tours. So yeah, and Chile itself is such a beautiful country. We crossed the land border to Bolivia as well, and from there I did couple of imaging sessions in in a place called Uyuni. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but Uyuni salt plains are probably the biggest salt plains on the planet. So there will be like thousands of miles of white salt plain. It was incredible, and there was like nothing in the front. So, well, again, bad weather struck, and I could not image for one day. We were there for three nights, and I was at one hotel called Salar de Uyuni, which overlooks the desert. So, in front of you, there's nothing. It's just black pitch, like white sand desert. In the morning, it will be very bright because it reflects the sunlight. It's almost blinding. You need sunglasses. But at night, it's going to be pitch black, dark. And I wanted to image, but unfortunately the clouds, well, fortunately or unfortunately depends, because my sister was there to see the reflection of the sky on the salt plains. So for her, the clouds were nice. She could see the entire reflection of the sky and the colors of the sunset on the ground. It looked like it's like this. You don't know when the sky begins, which is top and which is bottom. But at the night, there was no imaging for me. So it was a bit sad, but the town itself, Uyuni itself it's very dark. So on the third night, I still managed to get some imaging as well. I have a smart telescope, so not much setup time. Yeah.
What's the altitude?
I think so. Bolivia. I don't know. It's about 50% oxygen in Bolivia, and but
12,000 feet. So
Yeah,
I
12,000.
don't know where you were in relation to La Paz.
yeah, I think I was a little south of La Paz. Yeah.
We'll have more questions at the end for Dan also. So thank you so much. To wrap up, I'm going to talk briefly, just like 3 minutes, about my upcoming trip. Waiting. There we go. Okay. So first thing about me, I was raised in a barn. It's not quite literally true, but it's close. My grandfather helped build this barn in 1906. He was 7 years old at the time in Wisconsin. And when you look inside of one of these, it does feel like you're stepping back in time, because you are looking at not only construction methods with mortise and tenon and all these hand-hewn beams. Not only are we looking at construction methods lost in time, but materials. The reason they built barns like this is because you need long, straight, old-growth hardwood in order to build them. They don't make that anymore. Those fields have all been cleared to plant crops. But in a way, this barn is preserving what used to be. And what it reminds me of is looking at the night sky, because in both cases, we're looking back in time here. And a little quiz here, what do you think is older, the starlight or the barn? Well, obviously, both are true. At the far right, let's see if I can find the laser pointer, I'm not gonna worry. At the far right, the bright star is Aldebaran. The light left that star approximately 1960. So this barn was in its heyday back then. This barn is much older than that. However, the stars in Orion's belt and Betelgeuse above, about 900 light years away. So we're talking that light left those stars back during the Crusades. So obviously much older than this barn. What does this have to do with astronomy? I've got this idea. My dad and I are going on an adventure late August. Weather permitting, we can all only hope. And that is, my dad knows where all the coolest barns are in the area. He knows the farmers. I know a thing or two about astronomy, and I have the equipment to go along with it. We are going on a photography adventure to photograph and try to capture the beauty of all these barns under the night sky. So, for example, these are not barn photos, but some of our photos will be barns with the Milky Way nightscape in the background. Some of them will be moon shots, instead of the moon over Coy Tower, hopefully over a silo or other farm features. And certainly we will also have star trails. This picture taken in Point Reyes, but you could imagine, my dad knows where the barns are. I've been plotting out, well, this barn is at this aspect, and this far away, I can do this. Yeah, we're getting it, we're hoping for the best. So, obviously not a trip that you can sign up for, but hopefully give you inspiration for fun stuff you can do.
What state?
Wisconsin. And with that, I do want to just open up for questions for any of us, or if you don't have questions for us and just want to tell about your own stuff, that's fair game too. Yes, Dick.
Can I get the mic for
Yeah.
3 minutes? Kick me off. I'm Richard Vaughn, and this is a complimentary.
Oh, quick question.
Experience.
Do you want me to keep recording? We're streaming right now.
No.
Okay, I'll shut down the stream so we can talk freely, not worry about publicity.
I'm not going to talk about political candidates, so I don't care.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm very different than all of this, okay? Even though my education was in astronomy, I was a professional astronomer for 10% of my career. Most of my career was in biology. But anyway, when it comes to amateur astronomy, I'm at the end of the amateur side of the spectrum, especially when it comes to imaging. I only have smart scopes. So I don't know anything about the fancy equipment that you folks use, and that's great. But I just want to say, we were going to Australia, to South Australia, a couple of months ago. My wife planned the trip. It was not an astronomy trip. But what I encourage you to do, because the southern sky is, of course, amazing, is for the price of one night's hotel stay, or maybe two, I spent $450 and bought a Dwarf 3 smart scope that fits into carry-on luggage so I could take it on the airplane. And I had an incredible time. And my favorite photographs of that trip were not the koalas or the echidnas or anything. It were the 3 clear nights I had outside of the city in the parking lot, behind the lodge, with my dwarf scope capturing the things you've seen in the images of: the Magellanic Clouds, the Eta Carina Nebula, 47 Tucanae. And it's just a great experience to see the southern sky, all these targets that we've never had a chance to see. So if you're planning a trip to the southern hemisphere, and it's not going to be for one of these organized trips where they'll provide the telescopes, maybe you'll want to do that. It literally costs less than 2 nights worth of a hotel to buy that Dwarf 3. And I know Vionis and there are other ones that'll fit in your carry-on. You just take it on an airplane. Anyway, I'm done. That's my experience.
Other questions or comments?
One question to you. What scopes did you use when you were in the other one?
So for the visual, it was like a huge truss tube of Sony, like a 19.6-inch truss tube of Sony.
And you could use it yourself for several hours? Or
Yeah, for 2 nights, yeah.
And it wasn't, in other words, a group with somebody